25. Subject, clause 1, subject to the public order. So यहाँ पहले ही condition दे दिया है, right? Right to freedom is conditional, but subject to public order, morality, and health. New factor has come in. And to the other provisions of this part, all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess, practice, and propagate, right? So what is it? All persons. Who does it apply to? All persons, right? Meaning, yeah, citizen and foreigners. And it is again available against state, right? And individuals also. It is available against state and individuals. Individuals also cannot take away this right from you. So this is, what else is important here? What kind of right does it talk about? Right to freedom. Freedom. Freedom of what? No. In fact, the word religion is not there in the body. 3 words that come is freedom of conscience. Freedom of conscience. Freedom of conscience. What is it? Freedom of conscience. Then we will just list down these. And the next is, this is the freedom of conscience. Huh? Freedom of religion ऐसा word नहीं आता है उसमें. Religion word will come, but not as a freedom of religion. Freedom of conscience. We'll talk about that. And it also gives right to freely do certain things. Freely do what? Freely profess, practice and propagate. Now there is a word called religion. Okay? So let's understand these things. You understand this, you understand this. What is conscience? No, so that is a different conscience. Okay. Right. So here, when we talk about this word conscience, it carries a slightly different meaning. That is the meaning, regular meaning of that word, right? This means it has all those things, the words that we use. Belief is a part of conscience. Faith is a part of conscience. Your belief in something, right? Or your faith in something is the conscience. So instead of using these words we find, where do we find these words? In preamble, right? In preamble, we find these words. Preamble, what does it say? It gives us liberty, which is basically freedom of what? Freedom of thought, right? Expression, belief, faith, and worship. Now, if your preamble, I mean, it's your preamble, right? So this preamble is giving you this kind of freedom. So naturally, the Constitution, the body of the Constitution has to incorporate and make it more obvious and clear. So if you take this out, expression, this is given to you under Article 19(1)(a), expression, speech and expression. Speech is a form of expression, but the expression carries a wider meaning, any form. So that is given there. Now, where is freedom of thought, belief, faith, and worship count even? All these words are basically part of conscience. So if you have to define conscience in the context of this article, then what did it mean? It means your thoughts, your beliefs. You believe in something. Not necessarily a belief in any existence of God, or this is a belief, including that kind of belief. Faith, right? And even worship, whatever you want to worship, you don't want to worship, however you want to worship. All these put together form conscience. So what you have is basically freedom of conscience. So conscience here would mean thought, your thought process, your belief, your faith, right? These are the basic. The regular meaning of the word conscience, when it says, okay, generally how do we use it? We say, you can do it if your conscience allows you, where thereby we are actually invoking a sense of good and bad, आपको लगता है कि ठीक है, अच्छा है तो कर लीजिए. That is the meaning of conscience. Here, it has a slightly different meaning. And that meaning is also a small part of this. ठीक है? समझ में आ रहा है ये? Now, I hope you understand conscience. And it also gives freedom to do certain things freely. Freely profess, practice and propagate religion. Now, what is a religion? There are certain acts which have defined religion, right? Just check in Article 366 if it does. But there are now newer acts which we'll talk about which define religion. Now, religion in simple terms is a set of, you may say, so, there can be different definitions, as many definitions as the scholars. An acknowledged or recognized, set of ideas, right? Ways of life. It could take any form, any of these forms. Rules, rituals, practices, traditions, which are followed by certain people, right? So there can be very systematic religions, such as the very popular traditional religions of books. There could be other religions which are not religions of book. So this word is a very broad word, and it also can be, this term can be used for certain traditions also, certain cultures also, certain ways of life also, which are not otherwise generally recognized as religion. ठीक है? तो ऐसा इसको थोड़ा broad terms में लेना है इसको. So this is the meaning that it carries, So there are basically two types of religions. You know what are the two types of religions? So there could be religions of books, religion of book, okay, and there could be other religions without any specific book. What does it mean? It means ऐसे religion जो किसी एक किताब पर आधारित है, where there is a codified, there is a very specific book that you can call as a religious scripture of that religion, such as Islam. So Quran is that book on which it is based, right? There are others also, but basic fundamental book is this. Or you may say Christianity, it is also a religion of book, which is based on, say, Bible. There could be something like that, right? One of the later religions, which also can be called to a certain extent religion of book, could be Sikhism. When it depends on Guru Granth Sahib, right? But then here you have a question mark in mind, because India historically doesn't really know about religious books. But then there are other religions which do not really have any specific book, right? There can be large number of books, but there can be large number of traditions and these things, such as Hinduism. You cannot say that it is based on one book, right? Buddhism and other similar religions, even Jainism, no specific one book, right? Now this, of course, this word religion is referred to all such religions and others. Let us talk about what is the meaning of profess. Profess करने का मतलब क्या है? Profess means to follow, to believe in. So you have freedom to believe in, to follow, to take it as truth, to have faith in any religion. So this profess would actually carry two words. It is a belief. It is a faith also. You have belief and faith. You can have belief and faith in any religion. What is practice? Practice is if there are certain rituals in your religion, then you practice them, right? If there is any way of worshipping the God you believe in, then that. So this would include worship, other rituals or other ways of practicing that religion. There could be different things. So this word practice will include all these things, right? And then what is propagate? Propagate is to spread, right? What spread? Propagate is spread, meaning basically to talk about. So it means actually talk about. How do you spread? Talk about. Talk doesn't mean only talk. It can be write about also. Talk about. Talk about what religion is, what are its practices, what are its belief systems, what are its ideals, what are the value systems it proposes. Talk about all this. Spread. Let others know. That is propagate. So one important question came in this light. We'll talk about that. Maybe we can cover it right now. Whether to propagate also includes, because you have a right to propagate. Does it also include right to convert, right? Right to convert somebody to your religion, to your faith. Is it a right included in right to propagate? So this question also came before the Supreme Court in one of the cases. So this is Father Sten versus this is a state of MP. ये 1977 का है. अच्छा, स्पेलिंग तुम नहीं लिख पा रहे हो ना, Stanislaus, ठीक है. और this was an interesting case where this father went to the court, the matter went to the court, saying that Article 25 gives me right to propagate my religion, right? If this article gives me right to propagate, what does that mean? That I have to also have a right to convert others. How do I propagate? So this was in 1977, and it was a constitution bench, which went into this question whether this is included in it or not, right to convert. The court said no, right? Finally, I think it was 4-1 judgment, but the court finally said it is not a right to convert. Right to convert some other person, right? Right to convert is not a fundamental right, contrary to our general understanding. This is how you infer from the word propagate. I think it was Justice Ray's bench, and he was the Chief Justice then. So he held that maybe it could be Bhagwati, the then Chief Justice. And they went into the question of saying that propagate means to spread, to talk about it, to let others know about it. Propagate करना, किसी चीज को propagate करना मतलब क्या, right? उसके बारे में बात करना. किसी को convert करना उसमें शामिल नहीं. ओके, मतलब ये है कि इसके बात हो सकती है. जैसे सेजल नाम है, तो सेजल को मैं बता सकता हूँ कि मेरा एक रिलीजन है, and I think my religion is a very good, the best religion in the world, and I must tell her about this religion. Then of course I can tell her that this is a good religion, these are the good things in this religion. That much I can do under my right to propagate, but I cannot ask her, right, as a matter of right, that you convert to this religion. Why? And the court gave a very good logic also in things. What did the court say? The court logic was very good logic. They said, if you take right to convert someone as your fundamental right, then at the same, if you do this, then you actually infringe upon that person's right to freely confess. उसकी freedom of religion पर वो अटैक करेगा यदि आपको right to convert मिल जाए. मतलब, for example, Sejal, if I have a right to convert her to my belief system, my faith, or my religion, then she loses her right of freedom to religion. Correct? So that was a logic given in that, and it is a settled thing even now. So there's no right to convert, because right to convert will affect your right to freedom of religion. Then we'll have to talk about exceptions. We did not talk about exceptions. We listed them, right? We did not list them. Exceptions क्या है? Clause 1 में ही दिया हुआ है. In the very first, in the beginning itself, that these rights are not absolute. कि मैं जिस चाहे धर्म को, आस्था को मानूं, रखूं, जो भी चाहे मैं विचार रखूं, आस्था विश्वास रखूं, ये आजादी मुझे है. प्रोफेस, राइट? उसको प्रैक्टिस करूं, उसके रिचुअल्स करूं, उसकी वर्शिप को अपनाऊं, दैट राइट आई हैव. उसके बारे में बात करूं, टू प्रोपेगेट, to talk about it, to let others know about it, that right I have, and freely doing. Nobody can stop me. However, there is a condition. There are exceptions. Mean there are conditions. There are more of conditions. Instead of saying exceptions, there are more of conditions. Condition is, first condition mentioned in is public order. Public order, you know what is public order. We have discussed that. We will not talk morality. We have already discussed about morality. Go back to your notes. And another important thing is health. स्वास्थ्य भी एक लिमिटेशन. इसका मतलब है कि आप जो कुछ कर रहे हैं, वो जो सोच आप रखते हैं, जो कुछ आप प्रैक्टिस करते हैं या उसको प्रोपेगेट करते हैं, ये ऐसा करते समय पब्लिक ऑर्डर डिस्टर्ब नहीं होना चाहिए, कानून व्यवस्था नहीं बिगड़नी चाहिए. दैट इज द मीनिंग. दूसरा, मोरालिटी के अगेंस्ट नहीं होना चाहिए, राइट? और तीसरा, स्वास्थ्य के विरुद्ध भी नहीं होना चाहिए. उससे किसी का स्वास्थ्य को हानि नहीं पहुंचनी चाहिए, आपके खुद के स्वास्थ्य को भी नहीं और किसी और के स्वास्थ्य को भी नुकसान नहीं होना चाहिए. इट शुड नॉट एडवर्सली अफेक्ट हेल्थ. ऐसी कोई प्रैक्टिसेस हो सकती हैं कि मैं जो प्रैक्टिस करूं यहाँ पर तो वो प्रभाव पड़ेगा, हो सकता है वो उससे प्रदूषण हो सकता है उसमें पोल्यूशन होता हो किस तरह का, उसमें हेल्थ का इफेक्ट हो सकता है. ये तो दिया हुआ है कंडीशंस, बट देन वी हैव बीन वेरी सिलेक्टिव इन अप्लाइंग देम. So that's a different thing, but that's the freedom you have. So practice, profess, and propagate, yes, but conditional, subject to these things. Let us go to the next clause 2. Nothing in this article, we read this. State can make laws to do what? Regulating or restricting any economic, financial, political, or other secular activity which may be associated with religious practice. And B, providing for social welfare and reform, or the throwing open of the Hindu religious institutions of a public character to all the sections of Hindus. What does it say? ये exceptions, ये basically exception है. वो क्या कहता है कि clause 2, it says that state can make laws to do what? To regulate, right? Any affairs of that kind. जो religion से related तो है, but religion का core हिस्सा नहीं है. You know why it is talking about that? Because we'll come to the next article and that will be more clear. That regulating or restricting any economic, financial, political, or other secular activity. What is that secular activity? What is a secular activity in a religion? For example, there is a big temple, a lot of money comes into it, and they run schools with that money. They run any businesses or societies or hospitals. These are secular activities related to a religion. वो religious activities है क्या? वो religious activity में state interfere नहीं कर सकता. But the activities which are related to religion but are secular in nature. Secular का मतलब है कि non-religious है. वो is there anything religious about hospital? That hospital may be run by a religious trust, but that activity is not a religious activity. They can do business. A lot of organizations are doing business, right? So those affairs can be regulated. State can regulate those things. वो नहीं कह सकते कि नहीं हम तो कुछ भी कर सकते हैं, ये तो हमारा मंदिर का पैसा है, हम तो जो चाहे करें. नहीं, religious activities में आप जो चाहे कर सकते हो, but बाकी जो activities है, what kind of activities is mentioned? Economic, financial, political, and other similar secular activities means non-religious activities जो bodies करती हैं, उसको regulate करने के लिए state कानून बना सकता है. And another important thing, B, जो बड़ा relevant सा है, providing social welfare और रिफॉर्म की बात भी स्टेट कर सकते. इसमें सेकुलर वाली बात नहीं की, मतलब रिफॉर्म की बात है, तो रिफॉर्म कहाँ होगा? तो वो रिफॉर्म जो है वो रिलीजियस रिफॉर्म्स की बात करता है. हो सकता है कि आपका एक रिलीजियस बिलीफ है जो सही नहीं है, उसको बदलने का भी स्कोप स्टेट के पास है, अंडर आर्टिकल 25(2). सो जो रिफॉर्म्स की जब बात करते हैं तो उसमें एक रिफॉर्म मेंशन भी किया है, दे हैव ऑलरेडी मेंशन इट, सच एज opening of temples to all sections of Hindu society, for example, Hindus. So this is written in that context. जब around 1947 to 50 के बीच में when this was written, many sections of Hindu has had again, I mean that's a different thing. We can't enter into that. We'll discuss maybe separately whether Hinduism is a religion or not. Topic of discussion, but in today's context, we may say that people have taken it as their religion and they believe that it is their religion, right? Whether it is a way of life or whatever, but it is religion in general understanding of the people. So we'll go by that. Okay? There are a lot of people who believe that they are Hindus were not allowed to enter into the temples, right? Various temples across the country, and there are hundreds and hundreds of deities, different gods, for which we build temples across the country. And in many of these, some sections were not allowed. So we talked about those sections such as the untouchables were not allowed in many. In some specific sections or communities were not allowed, which were socially or educationally backward. If you talk about the social structuring of the Indian society, the old so-called structuring, the Shudras, the people who were bracketed as Shudras, put in that category, were not allowed to enter many temples also. Not all of them. Some communities were excluded. And that is why this was mentioned, that state can throw open Hindu temples for all sections of society. मतलब state के पास उन्होंने अधिकार दिया, यदि उनके ध्यान में ये आता है कि ये फला टेम्पल में इस पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटी को नहीं आने दिया जाता, so state can make a law and say नहीं, this is open, they will be allowed. And then that will not be a violation of the fundamental right of those people who run that temple. This is about that freedom of religion, which is contained in this. So ये जो freedom of religion है, वो अपने आप में, it's not like other freedoms that we have in our fundamental rights. It is one freedom which generally people don't use. Use meaning Not in that sense. Meaning, for example, conscience. Conscience means your belief system, right? Whether you want to belong to a religion, which religion, that you never get to choose. World over, and particularly in Indian context, you don't get to choose. Have you chosen your religion? You're all adults, right? But you did not choose. Did you exercise his right of conscience? You did not, because the family that you were born in has a belief system or has a religion, or they follow a religion, and that automatically becomes your religion. So you generally don't exercise your freedom of conscience because you don't get to choose. Then how do you really ensure that people are able to exercise this freedom of conscience, freedom of religion? Because you as an individual have a freedom, you have a fundamental right to believe in any religion, to do any practices, to talk about. But do you do that? Do you choose? Then with other fundamental rights, what do they do whenever there is a fundamental right given in the constitution? What do? State tries to give that right to people, right? By making laws. We've seen that, such as state said no child should be employed. We've seen last session. That's a fundamental right of a child not to be employed. That's a right. There's a fundamental right given by the constitution that every child between the age of 6 and 14 will be given free and compulsory education. So what did state do for that? To implement that fundamental right, to ensure that that fundamental right is enjoyed by the children. By merely giving it in the constitution, writing it in the constitution, it does not reach people. Take it to people, and to enable people to enjoy those rights, the state has to do something. So they came up with the Right to Education Act. Or to prevent children from getting employed, they came up with Children and Adolescent Employment Prohibition and Regulation Act. Right? We saw yesterday. So you enable. Has the state or the government done anything to enable you or to help you to exercise your right to freedom of religion? Right? Have they done so? They have. There's no central act as such. But some states in recent times, very recent times, of course, there was some old acts also. Some states have come up with something called Right to Freedom Act, Right to Freedom of Religion, or rather Freedom of Religion Act. So they have come, many states, states have come up with that. States such as Karnataka, or Madhya Pradesh, they have come up with such. There's a Madhya Pradesh Freedom of Religion Act. Now, if you have to enable people, enable means to make people capable of enjoying this right to freedom of religion. What kind of provision should be contained in such acts that make it easy for you to exercise your freedom of religion? They should make it easier, right? They should facilitate that process. They should provide the way of doing it, isn't it? That's how otherwise you don't know, right? For example, Sejal, she chooses so I think I will take some other religion, some religion which is not the religion of your parents, for example. Fair enough, right? You have that right. And you want to exercise that right now, freedom of religion. You want to take any religion for that. Sikhism lena hai, udaharan ke liye, whatever. So what should state do? How do you do that? Then state should actually give a very easy process and support you as a citizen, as a person, to exercise your right of freedom to religion, right? Freedom of religion. And that is what is expected of such acts. But interestingly, these acts do not really enable people. So, okay, so he's talking about atheists. So these beliefs can be of, how do you categorize belief systems, So it all depends on belief. So one could be a religious person, okay? Now you have to understand religion and God are two different things. Okay? Religion and God are very different things. So let us talk about belief. When it comes to belief, let's talk about God. So if you believe in God, you are a theist, right? Theist means one who believes in God is called theist. So you believe. And if you don't believe, right? You don't believe, then you are an atheist. Okay? You don't believe in God, so you're called atheist. So this could be that. We're talking about God. Religion is a different thing. Then there could be one who says, so this says God exists. This says God does not